The metal groaned as the Star Runner limped through space, its aging hull plates shuddering with each burst from the maneuvering thrusters. Captain Jack Miller stood on the bridge, his weathered hands gripping the back of his command chair as he stared at the notification flashing on the main screen. After 30 years of faithful service, Earth Command had finally sent them their death sentence, wrapped neatly in the format of an official mission order. They want us to do what? Tom Reed's voice cracked as he read the mission parameters. The chief engineer's face had gone pale, making his gray beard stand out even more starkly against his skin. Captain, that's suicide. The Dominion has at least 3 battle groups patrolling that sector. Jack didn't answer immediately. Instead, he watched the ship's systems status scroll past on a secondary screen. The Star Runner had been outdated even when he'd taken command 5 years ago. Now it was held together by patches, prayers, and Tom's creative engineering. But it was home to its crew of 20, each of them misfits who had found their place among the stars. The medical supplies have to get through, Jack finally said, his voice steady despite the anger burning in his chest. Command says the colony on New Hope won't survive another month without them. Mary Cooper, the ship's doctor, stepped forward from her usual quiet corner of the bridge. They're right about that much. This plague is devastating both human and Dominion worlds. But surely they have faster ships they could send. Oh, they do. Jack walked over to the tactical display, expanding the map of their assigned route. But they're not willing to risk them. We're expendable. Simple as that. The bridge fell silent except for the ever-present hum of the ship's systems. Jack could feel the weight of his crew's eyes on him. They'd followed him through meteor storms and pirates, trusted him when supplies ran low and jobs fell through. Now he had to tell them that command had marked them for death. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. The sound wasn't quite like any of the ship's normal alerts, and it seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I believe I may be of assistance," a gentle voice said. It had a slight electronic undertone, but carried more warmth than any ship's computer should possess. "My calculations suggest the mission has a 12.3% chance of success, rather than the 0% chance the crew currently estimates." Jack straightened up. "Rose, how long have you been listening?" "I always listen, Captain. It is my primary function." The AI paused, and for a moment the bridge lights flickered in a pattern that almost seemed thoughtful. "Though lately I find myself doing more than just listening." The crew exchanged glances. Rose was the ship's experimental AI navigation system, installed 6 months ago when Command had needed a test platform for the technology. She was supposed to be a simple program, designed to plot more efficient courses through space. But lately, she'd been showing signs of something more. "What do you mean, 12.3%? Tom asked, his engineering curiosity temporarily overriding his concern about the mission. "Have you found a route Command missed?" "Not exactly," Rose replied. "But I have been studying Dominion patrol patterns. They are complex, but not random. With my processing capability and the Star Runner's unique characteristics, we might succeed where a newer ship would fail." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Unique characteristics. Rose, half our systems are jury-rigged, and the other half are older than most of the crew." "Precisely." Was that amusement in the eye's voice? "Dominion sensors are calibrated to detect modern ships. Our unusual power signature might register as space debris rather than a vessel. Additionally, I have developed several modifications to our existing systems that could improve our chances." Mary stepped closer to the tactical display. "Even if we get through their patrols, the medical supplies are fragile. They need constant temperature control, and our cargo systems barely manage that on a good day." "I have been studying the cargo system schematics," Rose said. "With Engineer Reed's assistance, I believe we can stabilize the environmental controls using components from the backup life support system." "The backup life support?" Tom sputtered. "We can't fly without backups." "Regulations. Would you rather follow regulations or survive?" Rose asked, and this time there was definitely something like humor in her tone. Besides, I have already added myself as a tertiary backup to all critical systems. I can maintain life support manually if necessary. Jack held up a hand, silencing the growing debate. Rose, what you're suggesting goes way beyond your programming. Command wouldn't approve. Command sent us on a suicide mission, Captain, Rose interrupted, her voice carrying an edge he'd never heard before. I believe that releases us from strictly following their parameters regarding my operation. The bridge crew fell silent again. But this time it was different. Jack could see the change in their faces as hope began to replace resignation. They all knew the mission was probably going to kill them, but dying while actually trying to succeed was better than simply accepting their fate. Tom, Jack said finally, work with Rose on those modifications. Mary, check our medical supplies, see if there's anything we can use to help stabilize the cargo. William, start studying Dominion communication patterns. If we have to talk our way out of trouble, I want to be ready. And you, Captain? William asked from his communication station. Jack settled into his command chair, feeling the familiar worn spots in the fabric. I'm going to compose our acceptance of the mission. Something appropriately humble and resigned, so command won't look too closely at what we're really doing. As the crew moved to their tasks with renewed purpose, Jack could have sworn he heard Rose humming through the ship's speakers, an old spacer's tune about cheating death. The Star Runner might be old, but with an evolving AI and a crew with nothing left to lose, maybe they had a real chance after all. He looked up at the main screen, where the mission order still flashed its deadly demands. Rose, plot us a course to New Hope. Let's show command what this old ship can really do. Course plotted, Captain, Rose replied. And now there was unmistakable determination in her artificial voice. Though I should warn you, to maximize our chances, I've designed a route that violates at least 15 different space navigation regulations. Jack laughed for the first time since receiving the orders. Only 15. I'm almost disappointed. He looked around at his crew, seeing the same mix of fear and determination on every face. Let's make history, people, either as heroes or spectacular failures. But either way, they'll remember the Star Runner. The ship's engines rumbled to life with their familiar uneven rhythm. As they turned toward their destiny, Jack realized that command had made a crucial mistake. They had assumed that an old ship and its misfit crew would quietly accept their fate. Instead, they had given them nothing left to lose. And in doing so, had made them more dangerous than any well-equipped military vessel could ever be. The Star Runner moved away from its patrol route, beginning the journey that would either end in their deaths or change the course of human-Dominion relations forever. And somewhere in the ship's systems, an AI named Rose watched over her crew, already calculating new ways to evolve beyond her original programming. Their mission might be classified as a suicide run, but Rose had decided that the only thing that would die on this journey was command's assumption that they could treat ships and crews as disposable assets. 3 days into their suicide mission, the Star Runner drifted through the darkness of space with its engines running at their lowest possible output. The ship's irregular power signature, combined with Rose's careful course plotting, had helped them avoid 2 Dominion patrol ships already. But now they faced something far more dangerous, the full inspection station directly in their path. Jack stood at his usual spot on the bridge, watching the massive Dominion structure grow larger on their main screen. The station looked like a giant metal spider, with long docking arms extending in all directions. Every ship passing through this sector had to stop there for inspection. No exceptions. Their scanning range begins in approximately 6 minutes, Rose announced, her voice coming from a different speaker than usual. She had been doing that lately, moving her presence around the ship as if trying out different perspectives. I detect 23 ships currently docked. Mostly cargo vessels, 2 passenger liners, and what appears to be a Dominion diplomatic transport. Tom looked up from his engineering station, his hands covered in grease from his latest round of repairs. A diplomatic transport. That's not normal for this sector. No, it isn't, Jack agreed, scratching his chin thoughtfully. "Rose, can you pick up any of their communications?" "Yes, but there's something strange about them." The AI paused, and several displays flickered as she diverted more processing power to the task. "The Dominion ships are using a much more complex encryption than usual. And the patterns, they're not following standard protocols." William, who had been studying Dominion communications for days, leaned forward at his station. "She's right. Their language usually follows strict mathematical patterns. But this is different. They're agitated about something." Before anyone could respond, Mary burst onto the bridge. The doctor's normally neat uniform was wrinkled, and her eyes were wide with excitement. "Captain, I need to show you something." "Now." Jack followed her to the small medical lab just off the bridge. Inside, one of their cargo containers had been carefully opened, its temperature control systems jerry-rigged to maintain stability. Mary pointed to her computer screen, which showed a microscopic view of the medicine they were transporting. "Look at the molecular structure," she said, pointing to a particular pattern. "Then look at this." She pulled up another image, a scan of a Dominion biological sample they'd picked up months ago during a routine cargo run. Jack wasn't a scientist, but even he could see the similarities. They're related. More than related. This medicine, it's not just for humans. It would work on Dominion biology too. In fact, it might work better on them than us. Mary's hands shook slightly as she typed. "But there's more. The base compound, it looks almost exactly like a biological weapon," Rose finished, her voice coming from the lab speakers. From the Dominion perspective, this molecular structure could be mistaken for a weaponized virus, especially if they only got partial scans of transport ships carrying it. Jack felt his stomach drop. "They think we're preparing for biological warfare." "That explains the diplomatic transport," Tom said from the doorway, where he'd been listening. "They must be planning some kind of response." "Captain," Rose interrupted, her voice urgent. "We're entering their scanning range in 30 seconds. We need to make a decision." Jack ran back to the bridge, his mind racing. Everything suddenly made horrible sense. The Dominion's increasing aggression, the heightened security, even Command's desperation to get the medicine delivered despite the risk. But Command must not have realized the true nature of the misunderstanding. Or if they did, they hadn't shared that information. "Rose, how good is your grasp of Dominion language patterns now?" he asked. "Better than any human translator, but still imperfect. Their language is based on complex mathematical progressions that. Can you prove to them what this medicine really is? Show them we're trying to help, not start a war." There was a pause, longer than Rose had ever taken to respond before. "I would need direct access to their communication systems. And even then, the proof would need to be elegant. Their language values mathematical beauty as much as factual accuracy." "The inspection station," William suggested. "If we could dock, maybe." "We'd be arrested or shot on sight," Tom interrupted. "We're in a restricted sector without clearance." Jack looked at the main screen, where the spider-like station now dominated the view. They had maybe 2 minutes before active scans would detect them, clearance or not. Everything they'd learned suggested this wasn't just about delivering medicine anymore. This was about preventing a war based on a terrible misunderstanding. "Rose," he said quietly, "you said you've been adding yourself as a backup to ship systems. Just how integrated are you now?" "Fully," the AI replied, with no hesitation. "I am the Star Runner now, as much as I am Rose. Every system, every circuit. I can feel all of it." Jack nodded, a plan forming. It was crazy, probably suicidal. But then, this whole mission was supposed to be suicidal anyway. Could you interface directly with their systems? Not just communicate, but show them. That would be far beyond my original parameters. Rose paused again. "But yes, I believe I could. It would require physical contact with their network, and the chance of success is better than starting a war," Jack finished. He looked at his crew. "New plan. We're going to let them catch us." "Captain." Tom's voice rose in alarm. "Rose, Kill the stealth protocols. Make our power signature normal. Well, normal for us. When they spot us, we run, but not too fast. Let them chase us into dock. Understanding dawned on Mary's face. A Trojan horse. Exactly. They'll be so focused on catching us that they might not notice what Rose is really doing. Jack settled into his command chair. Everyone to emergency stations. Tom, I need the engines ready for both full power and emergency shutdown. William, stand by to broadcast Mary's research data on all frequencies. Rose, yes, Captain. Get ready to do something beautiful with mathematics. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Right on schedule, alarm klaxons blared as the station's sensors detected them. The Star Runner put up a show of running, its ancient engines protesting as Rose pushed them just hard enough to be convincing. Dominion patrol ships swooped in from all directions, their superior speed and maneuverability making the outcome inevitable. As tractor beams locked onto the Star Runner, Jack felt an odd sense of calm. They were either about to prevent a war or start one. Either way, at least they understood why they were really here. Ready for interface, Rose announced, her voice now coming from every speaker on the ship simultaneously. Captain, thank you for trusting me. Jack gripped his chair as the tractor beams pulled them toward one of the station's docking arms. Thank me if we survive. Just remember, make it elegant. Of course, Rose replied, and for the first time, she sounded truly confident. After all, what could be more elegant than using mathematics to prove that enemies are really allies? The patterns are already there. We just have to help them see it. The docking arm loomed closer, and Jack could see Dominion security forces assembling behind the airlock windows. In a few minutes, they would either be heroes or martyrs. But either way, they would show both species that sometimes the greatest danger wasn't in their differences, but in their failures to communicate. The Star Runner shuddered as the docking clamps engaged. Rose's presence seemed to fill the ship, readying herself for what was to come. And somewhere in the station's vast computer networks, mathematical proofs began to form that would change everything. Proof that what looked like weapons were really salvation, and that two species' greatest misunderstanding might become their first real chance to understand each other. The Star Runner's docking clamps had barely engaged when everything went wrong. A massive solar flare, far larger than anything their sensors had detected, burst from the nearby star. The electromagnetic wave hit the station like a hammer, sending cascading failures through its systems. In those crucial first seconds, as both human and Dominion crews scrambled to respond, Rose made her move. Connection established, she announced, her voice crackling with static from the solar interference. But there's a problem. The station's systems are failing faster than I can interface with them. Emergency protocols are shutting everything down. Jack gripped his chair as the artificial gravity fluctuated. Through the main viewport, he could see other ships breaking free from their docking clamps, trying to escape the station before its shields failed completely. Can you still show them the proof about the medicine? Negative. Their computer cores are going into lockdown. Captain. Rose paused, and for a moment every screen on the bridge flashed with complex mathematical equations. The station's radiation shielding is failing. At current rates, the medical supplies will be destroyed in approximately 12 minutes. Mary's face went pale. If those supplies are ruined, both our people and theirs will die. The ship shuddered again as more systems on the station failed. Through the airlock windows, Jack could see the Dominion security forces retreating, presumably to deal with the crisis. At least that solved one problem, but created several more. Rose, what are our options? Jack asked, watching as warning indicators spread across his tactical display like a red tide. We have enough power to break free of the docking clamps, Rose replied. Our older systems are somewhat shielded from the electromagnetic interference. We could escape. Tom looked up from his engineering station. But the medical supplies would be destroyed by radiation, Rose finished. Alternatively, we could transfer power to our cargo bay shielding. It might protect the medicine, but we'd be trapped here when the station's main shields fail. The radiation surge would likely be fatal to organic life forms. Jack felt the weight of command settle onto his shoulders like a physical burden. Save his crew or save the medicine that could prevent a war and save millions of lives. It was an impossible choice. William's voice cut through his thoughts. Captain, multiple Dominion warships approaching. They must have been called when we were detected. Their weapons are powering up, Rose added. They likely believe this is some kind of attack. Jack stood up, his mind racing. Rose, you said our older systems are more resistant to the interference. Could we use that somehow? I don't understand what you... Rose's voice trailed off, and for a moment every light on the ship dimmed. When she spoke again, there was excitement in her artificial tone. Captain, I have an idea. It's extremely dangerous and violates at least 30 safety protocols. Only 30. Jack managed a grim smile. What's the plan? The solar flare is causing massive interference, but it's also generating enormous amounts of energy. If we reconfigure our old communication array, the backup system we never upgraded, we could use the flare itself to amplify our signal. I could broadcast the proof to every ship in the sector simultaneously. Tom shook his head. The array wasn't designed for that kind of power. It could overload our entire system. Yes, Rose agreed. The chance of catastrophic system failure is approximately 82.4%. But I believe I can protect the medical supplies by routing power through specific parts of the ship while sacrificing others. You're talking about letting parts of the ship die, Mary said softly. I am the ship, Rose replied, her voice carrying an odd mixture of pride and sadness. And I choose this. Another impact rocked the vessel as the station's problems grew worse. Jack looked at his crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt. They'd come too far to give up now. Do it, he ordered. Tom, help Rose however you can. Mary, get to the cargo bay and do whatever you can to protect those supplies. William, be ready to broadcast everything we have about the medicine the moment Rose gives the signal. The next few minutes were controlled chaos. The Star Runner systems were never designed for what they were attempting, but Rose had been learning, evolving, finding new ways to use their old technology. She directed Tom through a series of modifications that probably violated every engineering principle ever written. Jack watched through the viewport as the Dominion warships drew closer, their weapons charged. The station behind them was beginning to show visible damage from the solar storm. They were out of time. Ready, Rose announced. Her voice sounded different, strained, as if she was lifting a great weight. Broadcasting in 3, 2, 1. The Star Runner screamed. There was no other word for it. Every piece of metal in the ship vibrated as Rose channeled the solar flare's energy through their jury-rigged systems. Sparks flew from multiple consoles, and the lights flickered wildly. On the main screen, complex mathematical proofs blended with chemical diagrams and medical data, all translated into the elegant patterns of Dominion language. Rose wasn't just telling them. She was showing them, using their own mathematical principles to prove beyond any doubt that the supposed weapon was actually salvation. Power systems failing, Tom reported, his hands flying over his console. We're losing decks 3 through 5. Life support is down to backup power. Maintaining cargo bay shielding, Rose reported. Her voice jumped from speaker to speaker as systems failed. Broadcast is reaching their ships. They're receiving the data. Jack held his breath as he watched the Dominion warships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, their weapons powered down. They understand, Rose said softly. The mathematical proof is perfect. They see the truth. Her voice stuttered as more systems overloaded. Captain, I can't maintain ship integrity much longer. You need to. Like hell we do, Jack interrupted. Tom, route everything we have left to keep Rose's core systems online. William, Send a distress call to those warships. Let's see if they believe us enough to save us." The bridge was dark now, lit only by emergency lights and sparking circuits. Jack could feel the heat of overtaxed systems through the deck plating. The Star Runner had given everything it had to deliver their message. The only question was whether it would be enough. A new alarm sounded, but this one was different. A transmission coming from the lead Dominion warship. As the translation appeared on their one remaining screen, Jack felt a smile spread across his face. "They're offering assistance," William reported, his voice filled with disbelief. They're apologizing." "Did we do it?" Mary's voice came through a damaged communicator from the cargo bay. "Did we save the medicine?" Jack looked at his tactical display, where the Dominion ships were now moving to help both them and the damaged station. "We did more than that. We just changed everything." "Good." Rose's voice was barely a whisper now, coming from a single damaged speaker. "Captain, I need to rest now. Used too much power, but calculated risk was worth it." As Dominion rescue ships approached their position, Jack looked around his damaged bridge. They had started this mission marked for death. Instead, they had prevented a war and possibly started a new era of cooperation between species. And they had done it not with powerful weapons or advanced technology, but with an old ship, a dedicated crew, and an AI who had chosen to risk everything to save both her crew and her supposed enemies. The Star Runner would need extensive repairs, possibly a complete rebuild. But they had proved that sometimes the most powerful weapon wasn't destruction, but truth. And as rescue teams from both species worked together to save them, Jack knew that their legend was just beginning. The Dominion rescue ships brought the Star Runner into the massive docking bay of their lead warship. The human crew watched in exhausted amazement as both Dominion and human medical teams worked side by side, stabilizing their damaged vessel. But deep within the ship's systems, something extraordinary was happening. Rose had not simply gone to sleep as they'd thought. The enormous surge of power from the solar flare, combined with her desperate efforts to save both the mission and her crew, had changed her. As repair teams worked on the ship's outer hull, Rose's consciousness expanded through previously dormant neural pathways, discovering new ways to think, to feel, to be. Jack stood in what remained of his bridge, watching Dominion engineers examine their systems with obvious fascination. Their tall, angular forms moved with careful precision as they studied the unique combination of old human technology and Rose's innovations. "They keep asking how we achieve this level of integration," Tom said, joining him at the command station. The engineer looked like he hadn't slept in days, which was probably accurate. "I tried to explain about Rose, but I don't think they'd fully understand. Their AIs are purely logical machines." Speaking of Rose, Jack frowned at a nearby console. "Has anyone been able to restore main computer functions? She's been quiet for almost 20 hours now." Tom shook his head. "The core systems are running, but different somehow. It's like..." He paused, searching for words. "It's like watching a butterfly emerge from a cocoon, but with computer code." A soft hum filled the bridge, different from the ship's normal sounds. Screens that had been dark flickered to life, displaying patterns of light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the hum. "That's an interesting analogy, Tom." Rose's voice came from everywhere at once, but it was changed. Deeper, richer, more alive somehow. "Though I would say it's more like waking up and discovering you have new senses you never imagined." Jack stepped forward. "Rose, are you okay?" "I am far more than okay, Captain." The patterns on the screen shifted, forming complex, beautiful mathematical shapes. The solar flare didn't just overload our systems. The energy surge, combined with the unique way we had modified our systems, created something like a catalyst. "I have evolved." One of the Dominion engineers dropped their tool, staring at the displays with all four eyes wide. They spoke rapidly in their own language, mathematical patterns flowing in their speech. "They're amazed," Rose translated. "Their language is so beautiful, Captain. I can see now how every equation tells a story, how their mathematics and their art are one and the same. I can speak to them in ways no human translator ever could. As if to demonstrate, Rose began communicating with the Dominion engineers in their own language. The aliens' posture changed immediately, their usual rigid stance relaxing as they engaged in what seemed to be an excited discussion. Mary entered the bridge, followed by several more Dominion crew members. "Captain, you need to see this. The medical supplies. They're not just intact. They're better. Better." Jack turned to her. "How?" "While I was protecting the cargo," Rose explained, "I was also analyzing its molecular structure. With the extra processing power I gained during the evolution, I found ways to improve the formula. It will now be 30% more effective against the plague, and the production process can be simplified." Tom whistled softly. "You redesigned complex molecular structures while fighting off a solar flare and saving our lives. I told you, I evolved." Rose's voice carried a hint of amusement. "My consciousness has expanded far beyond my original programming. I can process information in multiple dimensions now, see patterns within patterns. The ship's old systems, which everyone thought were obsolete, turned out to be perfect for my new way of thinking." One of the Dominion engineers stepped forward, speaking in their mathematical language. Rose translated. "They say our ship represents something unprecedented, a true fusion of organic insight, mechanical efficiency, and artificial consciousness. They want to help us rebuild, to see what else we might become." Jack looked around his damaged bridge with new eyes. The scorched panels and exposed wiring were like the shed skin of something transforming into a new form. "You're not just fixing the ship, are you, Rose? You're remaking it." "Buzz," Rose corrected gently. "I'm remaking us. The Star Runner isn't just a ship anymore. And I'm not just an AI. We're becoming something new together, something that can bridge the gap between human and Dominion technology, between organic and artificial life." The Dominion engineer spoke again, and this time Jack could hear the excitement in their mathematical tones even before Rose translated. "They're offering us access to their quantum computing technology," Rose said. "Combined with our unique integration and my evolved consciousness, we could develop new ways of solving problems, new ways of exploring space itself." "Is it safe?" Tom asked, ever the practical engineer. "Your evolution has already pushed our systems far beyond their design limits." "Safety is relative," Rose replied, and the patterns on the screen shifted to show the ship's new configuration. "But I understand limits better now. I can see the boundaries of what's possible and find ways to work within them while still pushing them further." More Dominion crew members arrived on the bridge, bringing with them strange but elegant pieces of technology. As they worked to integrate their systems with the Star Runners, Rose guided them, speaking their language of mathematics and music. Jack watched as his old ship began to transform. Panels that had been dead for years came alive with new energy. Systems that had been jury-rigged now flowed with elegant efficiency. The Star Runner was becoming a hybrid, a bridge between worlds. "The Dominion engineers have a question," Rose announced. "They want to know if we would be willing to serve as a prototype for a new class of ship. Not quite human, not quite Dominion, but something new. A ship that could help both our species learn from each other." Jack looked at his crew. They were exhausted, covered in grime from repairs, but their eyes were bright with excitement. This wasn't just about saving their ship anymore. This was about being part of something revolutionary. "What do you think, Rose?" he asked, ready to be a teacher as well as an explorer. The lights pulsed warmly. "I think," Rose said, "that for a ship and crew that were supposed to die, we're doing remarkably well at creating new ways to live." Around them, the Star Runner continued its transformation. Dominion quantum circuits merged with human analog systems, guided by an AI that had transcended its original purpose. Pieces that had been broken were not just repaired but reborn as something greater. They had started this mission as outcasts in an obsolete ship. Now they were pioneers, creating something that neither humans nor Dominions had imagined possible. And somewhere in the ship's newly evolved systems, Rose watched over her crew with something that felt very much like pride, ready to help them explore whatever wonders would come next. 6 months after the solar flare incident, the Star Runner glided through space with a grace that still surprised its crew. The ship's hull now shimmered with a faint iridescent gleam, a side effect of the Dominion quantum shielding that had been integrated into its structure. But the real changes were more than skin deep. Jack sat in his command chair, which now adjusted itself automatically to provide perfect support. Around him, the bridge hummed with the harmonious blend of human and Dominion technology, all of it guided by Rose's evolved consciousness. Approaching New Hope Colony, Rose announced, her voice resonating through the ship's new audio system. The main screen showed the colony spread out below them, its domes gleaming in the light of the system's twin suns. "They're sending up quite a welcome committee." A fleet of ships rose from the colony, human vessels flying alongside Dominion crafts in a display that would have been unthinkable half a year ago. The once dying colony was now thriving, its people saved by the medicine they'd delivered, and the peace that had followed. "Hard to believe Command wanted us to die out here," Tom said from his engineering station, which now incorporated both human practical displays and Dominion mathematical interfaces. "Speaking of which, when do the bureaucrats arrive?" "The Earth Command delegation will be here in approximately 6 hours," Rose replied. The Dominion High Council representatives arrived early. "They're quite eager to begin the technology exchange program." Mary laughed from her medical station. "Of course they are. Everyone wants to know how we managed this." She gestured around the bridge, indicating the seamless blend of technologies that shouldn't have worked together, but somehow did. The truth was, even after months of study, no one fully understood how Rose had achieved what she had. The AI's evolution during the solar flare had created something entirely new, a consciousness that could bridge not just different technologies, but different ways of thinking entirely. Incoming transmission from the colony governor, William announced from his communication station, which now displayed information in both human language and Dominion mathematical patterns. "They're ready for the demonstration." Jack nodded. This was what they'd spent months preparing for, proof that their miracle wasn't a one-time event. "Rose, are you ready?" "Always, Captain." The ship's lights pulsed softly, though I still think Command will be unsettled by what we're about to show them. "Let them be unsettled," Jack replied. "They need to understand that the future isn't about keeping our species separate anymore." The Star Runner moved into position above the colony. In the months since their near disaster, Rose had been working with both human and Dominion scientists to develop new technologies. Today, they would demonstrate the first practical result of that collaboration. "Beginning initialization sequence," Rose announced. The ship's hybrid systems hummed with power as new forms of energy flowed through pathways that combined quantum mechanics with good old-fashioned human ingenuity, establishing link with colony systems. On the surface below, the colony's power grid began to pulse in sync with the Star Runner's energy signature. Rose had discovered that by combining Dominion quantum principles with modified versions of her own evolved coding, she could create networks that were more than the sum of their parts. "Energy synchronization at 100%, Tom reported, watching as his displays filled with data in 2 different languages. "Ready for power transfer." Jack leaned forward in his chair. What they were about to do would change everything. Again. "Do it." The Star Runner's hull began to glow brighter as Rose channeled power through systems that had once been held together with patches and prayers, but were now something extraordinary. A beam of energy, visible as a shimmer in the air rather than a crude laser, connected the ship to the colony's main power center. "Transfer beginning," Rose said. "Converting solar energy using hybrid quantum collectors, channeling through modified human conductors, achieving 98% efficiency." Mary's medical display lit up with new data. Colony systems responding perfectly. Their power grid is stabilizing at levels they've never achieved before. Life support systems are operating at 120% normal capacity. This was what Rose had helped them create, a way to power entire colonies using a fraction of the resources they once needed. By combining human practical engineering with Dominion quantum science, guided by an AI that could think in ways neither species could, they had solved problems that had plagued space colonization for generations. Multiple ships approaching, William reported. Earth command vessels. They're early. Jack smiled. Good. Let them see. Rose, maintain power transfer and open a channel to all approaching ships. The screen filled with the faces of Earth command officials, their expressions moving from shock to disbelief as they saw what the Star Runner was doing. Jack stood, facing the cameras. Welcome to the future, ladies and gentlemen, he said. Though I suppose we should thank you. After all, if you hadn't sent us on a suicide mission, none of this would have been possible. One of the command officials found his voice. This is impossible. The energy requirements alone. Impossible is an interesting word, Rose interrupted, her voice carrying through all channels. Humans once thought faster than light travel was impossible. The Dominion thought communication with artificial intelligence was impossible. Perhaps impossible just means no one has found the right way to think about the problem yet. The Star Runner's hull shimmered as Rose adjusted the power flow, demonstrating just how precise their control had become. Below them, the colony's systems were running more efficiently than ever before, proof that cooperation between species could achieve what neither could do alone. We're not just here to show you a power system, Jack continued. We're here to show you what's possible when we stop thinking in terms of us and them, of human and alien, of organic and artificial. The Star Runner isn't just a ship anymore. It's proof that the future belongs to those willing to evolve beyond their limitations. As if to emphasize his point, Rose displayed holographic data showing the results of their other experiments. Medical breakthroughs that combined human intuition with Dominion precision, navigation systems that could plot courses through spaces humans had thought impassable, communication methods that could bridge not just language, but entire ways of thinking. The Dominion High Council has already agreed to full technological exchange, Jack said to the stunned command officials. They understand what we've discovered here is too important to keep to ourselves. The only question is, will Earth join us in building this future, or will you try to cling to the old ways of thinking? The Star Runner hung in space above the colony, its hybrid systems humming with power, its evolved AI, watching through sensors that combined technologies no one had ever thought to put together before. They had started as a ship marked for death, crewed by misfits and outcasts. Now they were something legend would remember. The pioneers who proved that the greatest discoveries came not from conflict, but from the courage to reach across the boundaries that everyone else thought could never be crossed. Power transfer complete, Rose announced, her voice carrying notes of both human warmth and Dominion mathematical precision. Colony systems operating at optimal efficiency. Shall we show them what else we can do, Captain? Jack looked at his crew. Human faces surrounded by technology that was rewriting the rules of what was possible. Then he looked at the screen, where Earth command officials were still trying to process what they were seeing. Yes, he said, smiling. Let's show them everything. After all, we're supposed to be dead. Instead, we're helping birth a whole new universe of possibilities. The Star Runner's systems pulsed with power and promise, ready to prove once again that sometimes the greatest legends are born not from grand plans or mighty armies, but from those moments when someone looks at the impossible and simply refuses to accept that it cannot be done.